Welcome back. All right, so now the defensemen are out of the way, and I wanted the defensemen done first. I wanted that one to have as much time to breathe before I come back from my holiday as possible. And so, yeah, I mean, I might come back and find a bunch of angry people in front of my house. We've been waiting for you. But anyways, top 10 goaltenders, anybody? Goaltenders, it feels like it's a little bit easier to rank. And yet I have to keep in mind that from year to year, things do fluctuate wildly. So, for instance, this year, Linus Ullmark had one of the best years any Boston goalie's ever had. Do I expect him to repeat that? Probably not. Much like Igor Stravinsky the year before, it is tough to repeat that, right? So, top 10 goalies. There are 32 teams in the league, so there's 22 starters that won't get on the board. Let's go ahead and start things off at number 10, keeping in mind that the first name of this goalie can be a bit tricky because I'm used to spelling this ending in ER, not AR. And so Alexander Georgiev. So the former backup to Shesterkin in New York, and Georgiev, tons of wins for him in Colorado in the regular season. A little bit more of a struggle in the postseason, but I mean, it was his first postseason as a starter, so I think he did well enough, and I think he'll improve. So to me, Georgiev is a top 10 goaltender in the National Hockey League. And I know there will be some debate about that, but for me, just looking at the numbers, I do think Georgiev's solid enough to be top 10. So, that aside, number 9 on the board, the goalie he replaced. So when he came to Colorado, he had big shoes to fill. Those shoes moved along to Washington. So Darcy Kuemper, number 9 there. Now, of course, the Capitals missed the playoffs. That's not Kemper's fault. Kuemper, I thought, had a really solid year. And I still see Kuemper as being top 10 in the National Hockey League. This is the 1 out of the 10 that I think people might take issue with on some level. But again, Kuemper won the Stanley Cup. I don't think he was the reason that the Capitals missed the playoffs. And so to me, Kuemper still belongs in the top 10 in the National Hockey League at number 9. Number 8. And I kind of went back and forth on this, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to argue that Jake Ottinger is a top 10 goaltender in the NHL. He's still finding his footing as well. He's still young by goaltending standards, and had a bit of a tougher time the second time around in the playoffs than he did against Calgary the first time, although Dallas didn't beat Calgary. But for Ottinger, it's all a learning curve, and Vegas made every goalie look bad. The funny thing is, a Vegas goalie is not in the top 10. I debated about it, and I thought, you know what, but Adin Hill during the regular season wasn't really top 10. He got hot in the playoffs. Would I qualify him as a top 10 goalie in the National Hockey League going into the regular season for 2023-2024? No. Jake Ottinger, though, I will say yes. He had a .915 save percentage during the regular season. Again, Vegas lit him up a bit in that series, but who didn't they? Ottinger had some rough games along the way. There's definitely some holes in his game here and there. But again, young goaltender, I expect that to get better. And Dallas is a team that is likely to win their division. So, yeah. Number 8. Number 7. From Boston. This one should be pretty self-explanatory. So obviously, I'm not going to have Jeremy Swayman in the top 10. I couldn't justify having Swayman in the top 10. I don't have Demko in the top 10 either. Linus Ullmark, number 7. So he had a great year. It was an absolutely fantastic year. In the playoffs against Florida, after the 3-1 series lead, he looked kind of ordinary. And there was a lot of speculation about whether or not he was hurt. I'm not going to say he wasn't, but I mean, if you look at Ullmark's career numbers, they're not fantastic. He's a very good goaltender, but he's not... Yeah, I mean, he won the Vezina this year. I'm really proud of him. I don't see him winning the Vezina again next season. Although Boston's defensive numbers should be good, that should help Ullmark as well. They still have a really good blue line, even without the help of Bergeron and Krejci down the middle. Their defense and their goaltending should still be pretty solid. So Ullmark, I still think will be a top 10 goalie. I don't see him as the number 1. I feel like it would be me being a Bruins fan to go, yeah, he's the best goalie in the league, and I can't make that argument outside of the 1 year. Number 6. And this one might surprise people a little. I'm going to explain this one. So, Sergei Bobrovsky, is he overrated? I don't think so. Is he overpaid? Yes. But is he overrated? I don't think so. In fact, if anything, if you look at the advanced stats, he's much better than you think. The advanced stats tell us that Bobrovsky is honestly a very good goaltender. He saves goals above expected. Does he get lit up here and there? Sure. But Bobrovsky's been solid, and that run to the Stanley Cup final, I really think it would be kind of ridiculous for me not to at least have him in the top 10. And when going through the numbers and everything, I realized, yeah, I'm most comfortable with Bobrovsky at 6. Still doesn't justify the contract, obviously, but very good goaltender, and that run in the playoffs was fantastic. Again, I understand Vegas took him out in the playoffs, but who didn't they? They lit up every goalie. Every goalie they played, they made look pretty ordinary. So number 5 on the board, Winnipeg Jets. I think people are going to know what names come in here. Laurent Brossoit, who, if not for injury, may very well have been the starting goalie for a Stanley Cup winning franchise. But no, I'm going with Connor Hellebuyck. Hellebuyck, of course, currently on the trade block. Currently, as I'm recording this, still a member of the Winnipeg Jets. And I say that because he could get traded. It could happen. He is a UFA next summer, which means he's in a contract year. He could have a great year. He could have an absolutely fantastic year. And Winnipeg has to take that into consideration when it comes to whether or not to trade him. I understand he doesn't want to sign in Winnipeg long term, but maybe you go for that last hurrah. I know it didn't go that well for Columbus when they did that, with the whole, not trading away guys, and we're going to stick with Panarin and Bobrovsky, but maybe it works for the Jets and with Hellebuyck, right? So, at any rate, Hellebuyck, again, at the time I'm recording this, still a member of the team. Number 4, from Nashville, and there are a lot of people who look at UC Saros and say, best goalie in the league. And if you're of the mind that he's the best goalie in the league, nothing I say in this video will change your mind. For me, there are 3 goaltenders that I look at and say, in a Game 7 situation, I would prefer them over Saros. But he is excellent. And I guess I have to mention it because there's no other announcers here to mention it. He's below 6 feet tall and somehow still tends the net. That's always the talking point, and I think that sometimes is why people see him as the best goalie in the league. For me personally, I think he's a very good goaltender. I think he's one of the absolute best. I have him ahead of Hellebuyck. I have him ahead of Bobrovsky. But again, to me, there's just 3 guys that I would put ahead of him on the charts. And that's where things got really, really tough. Where I'm like, okay, Game 7. Who do I want in net? Number 3. From the New York Rangers. I don't know if I put in enough space between these when I was putting them on the board again. It worked fine when I was setting it up, writing the numbers on the board. Igor Shesterkin. Igor Shesterkin is bona fide one of the best goalies in the league. Even this year, which was a down year compared to last year, he is still excellent. Igor is the future in net between the New York Rangers. He is also the present and makes the Rangers look... I think he makes the Rangers' defense look even better than what they are, and I like their defense. But when you've got Igor behind you, he covers up some mistakes here and there by some guys, right? So Igor's been sensational. I don't see any reason not to think that he's going to stay as one of the best in the NHL this coming season. Which brings me to number 2, and I went back and forth on this. So this is the hate. You guys can leave the hate down below if you want. So Andrei Vasilevsky. I have time and time again said I believe he's the best goalie in the league. He may very well prove me wrong. But his numbers this year definitely dipped a bit. And he's played a ton of hockey. Maybe having a longer offseason will help. Tampa Bay got knocked out in the first round. I think that may benefit them, actually having a full offseason. But Vasilevsky, to me, he was just a little bit below the guy that I felt was the number 1 goalie in the NHL right now. So I know there will be Islander fans who are mad about the defenseman video. There may not be Islander fans in that same vein who are upset about this one. Ilya Sorokin. How about those Russian netminders? Sorokin, Vasilevsky, Shesterkin, Bobrovsky, and Georgiev. Born in Bulgaria, but Russian by trade. And so Ilya Sorokin, to me, is the best goalie in the NHL. He is so fantastically consistent. He is the reason the New York Islanders will not be a bad team this coming season. He may very well be the reason they make the playoffs. And so, to me, Ilya Sorokin, best goalie in the National Hockey League. It is tough. I think you can make the argument for anybody in the top 5. I think if you look at the advanced stats and you're convinced Bobrovsky is way better than his numbers, you might be able to make that argument. And if you think Ullmark's season that he just had was absolutely the indication of what's coming in the future, you can make that argument for Ullmark. Honorable mention to Thatcher Demko, who did not have a great first half of the season, had a good second half. Honorable mention to Bennington, who is a goaltender, doesn't put up great numbers. However, St. Louis fans will point out the blue line's been a problem. So maybe with some help from the blue line, maybe we see Bennington in the top 10 next year. But I'm pretty happy with this one. This one was actually, I found it to be easier than the defenseman video. There's fewer goaltenders, and there's fewer that are really elite, whereas with defense, there are tons of elite defensemen in the National Hockey League. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.